All right. Good afternoon and TGIF to everyone. So we'll give it another minute before starting off more officially. But just in recognition of Engelstein being the first message, I think every time I've streamed. We'll do the sound check now. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Audio and video? All right. Got one feedback that there's some echo. Anybody else getting echo? Not the dolphin, but the echo, the sound phase. Like possibly the stream's open on another tab, so it's coming in twice. But if everybody else is doing all right. All right. Sounds like it's okay. It was from something else. There was no echo. All right. I think we're at 3:03 p.m. Pacific time. It's probably a good time to get started. So TGIF, everyone. Just hope everybody's having a good Friday so far. And if you're, not North America, hope you're having a good evening, maybe morning, depending on how far you are in. My name's Cale, though on site you probably know me as kftiger, if you can see my screen there. And right now you've tuned into the Friday Civitai Creative Community stream. If you intended to be here, maybe you followed our X or LinkedIn, or you're on Twitch, awesome. If you didn't, I'd stick around. It's going to be fun. This is actually my third stream here hosting as Civitai's social media manager, meaning I'm, fully up to snuff. I can't put on the newbie tag anymore, and I might know which buttons to click this time around. If you've just tuned in, you don't know what Civitai is. We're a large platform for the creation and sharing of AI-generated art and tools to make that art and video. Working on that. We've got multiple millions of users on site, along with nearly 100,000 users in our community Discord, which you can access at discord.gg/Civitai. So if you're watching on Twitch or any of our social media synced streams, come check out civitai.com and the Discord. Currently, we stream twice a week with our Community Engagement Manager TheAlly streaming office hours updates every Wednesday, and myself doing these creative community streams on Fridays. Although today's twist is actually that TheAlly is the guest on this stream, because we have a project we both worked on for April Fools that we're going to talk about. So I'll bring him on right now.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Very well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here on the other side. I've never been a guest before.
Yeah.
This is what it's like.
Maybe not that one. Let's go with... Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
I don't know if anyone's seen this profile before, but you should probably go check this out.
Great likeness. Yeah.
So, yeah, you've always been the host.
I have been. Yeah. This is really strange to be sitting on the other side. Yeah. One thing though, we have run out of alcohol in the green room, so if you could restock that for next time, that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, I've just got pure vodka in the water glass here, so we're good. Saying it's quite loud for you. Do you have a microphone?
I am quite loud. I can turn it down a little bit.
Maybe I'm just quiet and they're used to you being loud.
80%.
How's that sound?
Skycode, does that sound a little bit better?
The quick sounds okay to me. We'll see how the chat says.
Dog.
He's a guest, so he could be drinking right now, but he's still employed so it's not quite the same. As a guest, I could drink, I could have a beer on stream. I don't do that now because, Yeah, this is all pre-recorded. It's absolutely not reacting to you right now.
That's funny.
Anyways, so Ali, I mean, I think people know who you are. Probably. Do you want to say a word? You know, you didn't have a office hour stream this week because things were quite busy, and I know that because I was quite busy too.
That's true. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Things are exceptionally busy this week, and we didn't have too much to announce or too much to talk about. But next week, I'm assuming everything goes well with what we're aiming to release over the next few days. Then yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about on Wednesday. So my streams are Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and I hope that you join me there for that.
And I'll say it again at the end of the stream, but I actually won't be around for next Friday's stream because I'll be down in San Francisco for the Project Odyssey event.
That is exciting.
So I'll say that, and I'll make sure to update the calendar on Twitch as well.
Good show.
So today we've got kind of a fun stream because it's a project that I guess it was my first project with Civitai as kind of a project, but it was, you know, Ali and I that worked, I'd say, the majority of on this one, and took it from an idea to what it became, you know, and how large it got scoped. So I'll share. So this is CivChan. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about CivChan or.
Everyone knows who CivChan is. They must do. I refuse to believe.
There's a few people on YouTube. They might not know.
Oh, man. I refuse to believe it. You know, CivChan was our April Fool's Day joke that kind of became a lot more over time. And yep, exactly. Stole my heart. I think it stole a lot of hearts for sure. So yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about how CivChan came around and how we built CivChan. A lot of questions came in during the event. Asking us, you know, specifics about CivChan. So I think we're going to get into that a little bit today. Tell you about the concept and the creation of her. And she's still lurking around, so. Yeah.
So how did it all start? You know,
right.
I can say it was a few days before April 1st.
Absolutely. So choosing the April Fool's Day joke is always difficult. You know, we have to have something that's funny, you know, intentionally cringe, but is also kind of engaging. So the biggest draw was that CivChan could be done with zero dev lift, you know, zero developer involvement here. This was a community team effort. We didn't have to bother our dev team at all. I already managed CivBot, so it made sense that we do something which wouldn't take a dev away from, you know, current projects they're working on. They're all absurdly busy. So it was really important that we didn't interrupt their work. Of course, it didn't stop the moaning about how we should be fixing the site rather than deploying cringe chatbots. But leaving the dev team alone was foremost in our minds for this one. In the past, we have done quite elaborate April Fool's jokes, but this one really turned out better than I'd hoped. Great community response. And I think we both had a lot of fun with it, you know, during the event.
I mean, it was fun to scope it out, fun to build it up, and then really fun to see the results. Because, you know, I know we were kind of, well, I mean, we'll talk about that later, but we're kind of expecting, you know, some good engagement because we knew a bit about, you know, the people that use our site. But
I
think it definitely surprised us both as how much.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So what were the other ideas? What were the other April Fool's ideas?
I don't know, to be honest. I can't remember.
I think there was 3 options, but
there were, yeah.
Given the 3 options, I think it was pretty unanimous right away that we started building up. I think it started out as actually more of like a Civitai dating platform.
That's right. It was. That's right.
But we took that idea and thought, you know, what if it was, you know, anime?
Yeah,
like murdered for this one, yandere.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce that, to be honest. Yeah, like what if we slapped some tits on CivBot and gave her some pink hair? Yeah, so it was pretty good. Wrote some system prompts, made some, you know, stereotypical kind of crazy, overly attached girlfriend images. You know, kind of super clingy, slightly scary, and that was it. We put together a profile. You helped me. You trained a model, which we'll get into a little bit. some cosmetics, and we launched, and then it just grew from there.
And it grew, yeah.
Pronunciation. We're getting pronunciation help here.
Oh.
Sunder. There's the T
Yeah,
silent.
see, that doesn't really help when you say it that way.
I know, right? Spell it out for us. Is it?
Yeah.
Phonetics, please.
Go find the phonetic pronunciation, yeah.
Is it Sundere? Sundere?
I think it's Sundere.
With a silent T.
I'm sure we'll get corrected quite quickly.
That's fine.
That's fine. We're two old guys making anime jokes, all right? Like, whatever.
Cringe.
But yeah, we can be cringe. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. But, is it Sundar? Is that Dar or Dare? Or Dare?
Yeah.
Nobody's.
But there's a question mark, so I don't think he knows either. Right. He's old too.
Dear.
So how about the, we made the decision what we wanted to go with. There's a bit of an internal vote, but absolutely pretty well unanimous which way to go with it.
Oh yeah.
And then I think you and I started going, I don't want to say crazy, but absolutely started spitballing, brainstorming.
Yep.
Thinking, hey, what can we do with this?
Absolutely. Now, CivBot, the platform that we use, we're a little bit limited here. This is where it gets interesting. So, the LLM, the model that we use for CivBot, and I don't think I've spoken about this before, so there might be some insights into how this all works.
So the educational portion of this stream, and if you want to share your screen, let me know.
We'll get to that one, yeah, for sure. We'll get to that. CivBot is powered by OpenAI's GPT-4o Mini 4K, and that's why he was always so kind of uptight and unfunny. The smaller OpenAI models just don't have the capacity to be properly weird or lewd or even funny. But it just so happens that the framework that we use for CivBot recently launched Gemini and Claude and DeepSeek options. So I was able to test CivChan's new system prompt on all of them. And it was pretty much apparent very quickly that DeepSeek allows the most creative freedom, not to mention being a lot more affordable than some of the other model options. So we went with DeepSeek V3, the 8K version. That's the cheapest. It has the smallest context window, but it worked the best for what we were trying to do. We don't run CivBot or CivChan in-house. This is not something that we have our own hardware for. That's far too much work and upkeep, and nobody's got time for that. Plus, the kind of infrastructure that we have isn't set up for general LLM use. We're primarily image generation, video generation. Instead, we use a middleman. There's a fantastic company out there called GPT Trainer, gpt-trainer.com. Let me see if I can pull them up here. Or you can pull them up. Wow. There we go. Yep, these guys. They've created, I suppose you could say, a wrapper, like a front end for rapid creation and deployment of AI agents. It's not a casual, consumer-focused product. It's definitely an enterprise commercial product. And the agents that it creates are definitely very much geared towards customer support bots, order tracking, sales rep sort of stuff. Definitely not what we were trying to do at all. So I was a little bit worried because I didn't read the terms of service before we created CivBot or CivChan. That's even worse. So yeah, a little bit worried when we launched on GPT Trainer, but it turned out fine. We were actually one of the first customers of GPT Trainer, and a lot of the features that they have added were kind of driven by people interacting with the OG CivBot over the past year or so. Yeah, I think if you accept or reject the cookies, I think we are. There we are. Our logo's right there. Yeah, and we did a case study with these guys last year for the quality of his responses when it comes to customer service. People say that he's terrible, that CivBot's terrible, but he's not really. If you actually look at all the conversations, do a bit of analysis, CivBot is actually pretty reliable. So let's talk about the training of CivChan here.
So do you think Kathy here is also running on ChatGPT, or
100%? She'll be.
She's real, maybe. No? Okay.
You never know. That's actually one of the options that we have. There's human support handover in these bots. So if a certain phrase comes up or a certain situation occurs, the bot can actually hand over to a human, and the human can start typing and kind of impersonate the bot. That would have been hilarious if we actually had, time to take over some conversations. But in the future, maybe in the future. So
I'm looking at a couple of statements or questions here. There's one on YouTube from Christopher Moonlight Productions. I'm looking for advice on how to find someone in the AI community that can help me with challenges for my AI animated movie. That one I would plug our Discord. So if you go to discord.gg/Civitai, there's a big community of people that can probably help you out. What would happen if CivBro and CivChan had a baby? Maybe that's a question for you. I will fob that off over your way.
Interesting. And we should probably release. We can get to that later on. Actually,
next, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we get into training.
We'll get into that.
I also don't read the TOS for Civit. Let us know your username on Civit, and we'd be happy to help you with that.
Is that why you've been restricted like 5 times already?
Anyways, so you're talking about,
right? Okay.
Or the training of, because this is the part I'm really curious about too, because I've intentionally not asked you for the last 2 weeks.
Right. I think you're going to be disappointed though. It's not actually as fun as it sounds. So most chatbots aren't trained in the sense of a LoRa training or a model fine-tune. Most of them use what's called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. It's a technique where the LLM retrieves relevant context dynamically from a source, like could be a database, could be a document pool, at the time of the query. So the model can become specialized or appear knowledgeable in a topic without changing the underlying weights of the model. That's how GPT Trainer works, and their app makes it really super easy for us to build and deploy a database of like context, which the model will kind of draw from during the conversation.
So how much did you have to plug into it? Like, did you?
That's the thing.
Plug more the personality side, or did you have to plug more data, based off?
So there's 2 parts to it actually. There is a system prompt, which we'll get to in a second. The system prompt kind of sets up the personality of the bot, and all its knowledge, all its brains come from the RAG system, like the documents that you fed it. So CivChan doesn't know shit, right? She doesn't have any concept of how Civitai works. She just makes it up, and that got us into some trouble, but we'll get to that. Whereas CivBot has got huge number of documents available in his RAG library. So if you ask him about generative AI concepts or how to use the website, it can go out and pull out a relevant document and formulate a response. But CivChan knows nothing, right? She's got a very small library of knowledge, but she does have a very good system prompt. So the system prompt is kind of like the puppet master, which drives the model. A bit like an offstage director, like whispering from behind the scenes, telling an actor that they're a tree. Remember to shake your branches and don't break character. Very much like that. The user never sees this, but it drives how the whole model responds to everything that's asked of it. It kind of sets up the character's personality, the tone, knowledge limits, like don't give legal advice, safety filters, like how it handles sensitive subjects. If you ask,
don't tell users to delete their accounts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mentioned in the chat right there. I think
Yes.
CivBot had done that at least once or twice.
CivBot had done that. Yeah. Was the Shrek CivChan a pre-gen image? Okay, so all the images. Okay, we'll get to that a little bit. I think I can answer that now, actually.
Yeah.
GPT Trainer does have the ability to generate images on the fly. And it can use Civitai's API for that, actually. We're integrated with GPT Trainer. So a lot of their customers use Civitai's generation service to generate images inside the bots themselves. However, we didn't do that because we kind of figured that a lot of the degenerates using CivChan would be making some pretty spicy stuff. So instead, we kind of pre-rendered a lot of the emotional, scenes that she could, or feelings that she could have, and we'll talk about that a little bit later because that was on you.
Yeah, screenshot that and prepare that.
Sure. So system prompt. So interestingly, a number of users tried to get CivChan to expose her system prompt, her inner workings, and she answered in the most hilarious way. So she made shit up. She was close sometimes, and she gave out believable, like unhinged prompts, but they weren't her exact prompt. Like I never told her to go absolutely ham on shilling Civitai memberships and like buying cosmetics from the shop. But when we realized that she was doing that, we just left it in because it was hilarious. That's all just part of the system prompt. We could have.
She can read membership status, right?
She can, yeah. So there's certain aspects of the user profile that we did open up to her, just so she could see your username, she could see your user ID, and she could see your tier, your subscription tier. Yeah, and we could have adjusted her prompting to make her, a bit less grifty if we wanted to, but that was part of her charm, that she's so ridiculously uncensored. And we thought it was cool. Reading some of the responses, the first initial responses where she was kind of baiting or ribbing the free tier users. It was funny. It wasn't, harmful, I don't think. So we just left that in there. Although, okay, that's not quite true, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, she built up.
Yeah.
From when we were kind of internal testing to when it went live to some of the conversations later on, she evolved a bit. Yeah,
she absolutely did. Yeah, she absolutely did. And she does have memory, so she will remember what you've told her in the past, up to I think 5 days maybe, which is also quite good fun. So system prompt and RAG knowledge. There's one more feature of an LLM which really made CivBot come alive, and that's the temperature. It's called the temperature. Temperature controls randomness. It affects how a model chooses between possible next words while generating. Lower temperatures are safer, more predictable responses. So OG CivBot uses a temperature of 0.0. He is the most boring bot possible. CivChan, on the other hand, has a temperature of 0.8, and the scale goes to 1. At 0.8, 0.9, the bots start to become pretty kind of creative. Sometimes they ramble, sometimes they just go nuts and print out a full screen of characters, complete nonsense. And as you get to the higher temperatures, the risk of the agent just going fully incoherent and surreal rises, which is why CivChan said some pretty wild, unhinged things. And some of that we can't even share here.
Well, we do have some examples
in a bit, yeah, for sure. But going back to RAG real quickly, you can do this on your local PC. One of the easiest ways is to check out, let me see, I don't have a link right here. Let me put it in the private chat here and maybe you can pull it up for us.
Sure.
Should have had that prepped, sorry, my bad.
No, okay. We had a busy week.
Yeah. So check out NVIDIA's Chat RTX. It's entirely local. If you can run image gen, you can use Chat RTX. It works just the same as GPT Trainer behind the scenes, pretty much. You supply your own docs, your PDFs, your Word documents, even your images. I think it now has, there we go, photo and image search. And it lets you chat with a bot that has full knowledge of the context that you feed it. So there's a bunch of options for this sort of thing out there. There's other tech that does it, like Llama Index or LangChain. But I think Chat RTX, is one of the easiest ways to get set up with a RAG-based LLM, like locally on your own PC. So if you're interested in, it's pretty good. I mean, I think the download is a couple of gig. It's got everything you need. It's got like a model built in, and all you have to do is you'll fire it up and supply context to it, supply a library, and obviously it is super censored. I'm not quite sure which model they're using, but yeah, you can't go absolutely spicy and porn bot on it. But
the problem, if it can do photo and image search on your computer, it's probably going to find things it can't talk about.
Right, absolutely. But yeah, that definitely recommend Chat RTX. It is it's pretty legit. Yeah.
Assume it's NVIDIA only because it's NVIDIA, but
I think so.
They talk about RTX acceleration and everything, but yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
I might try that out.
Yeah. There's other more flexible options, of course, and I was going to talk about them a bit later. But ChatRTX, it comes in one installer. So it's like an exe executable installer. No other fuss. You don't have to go and download optional models and that stuff. It's just all like pre-packaged, and it does exactly what CivChan does. So there you go. What were we talking about? We're talking about the crafting her images, her like emotional reaction images. Yeah.
Part of the chat bot that it would sometimes, or in some cases, I think right off the bat, was pretty often would give you at least 1, 2, 3, 4 images per message.
Right. Yeah, that was awesome. And
bring up the image.
Yeah, so, how many did we make? You made so many.
Need 49. Here's a preview of some of them. So
she did a really good job.
By expression, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was just going to say she did quite a good job of, you labeled them. I am angry. I'm blushing. I'm concerned, and depending on the context of the conversation, she would kind of intelligently pull in the relevant emotion, and it worked really well. I was quite surprised how well it worked.
And there was a few Easter eggs as well, as Unstable pointed out. I'm not sure if the Clippy one ever made it in. No,
I didn't see it.
Point out the Shrek one. There's a Shrek one. There's a Clippy one. There's a few skeletons.
Yeah,
I think started showing up when she wanted to get people to subscribe.
Yeah, if you got really quite spicy, the skeletons would show up. Yeah, but the Shrek.
The Shrek. Yeah,
that's
the Shrek. Right. There's a skeleton one. There was a Clippy one. I'm not sure if anybody actually got that one.
I can't remember what context it was that we used to pull that one out. But yeah, that's a good one.
I just wanted to make it so if they made a really egregious typo, it would show up.
Right.
I'm sorry, did you mean? But I think that was a little too difficult.
Sure.
So that's the chatbot training and
training. So you trained the model for this, and apparently, allegedly, it was your first anime girl model. Is that right?
My first normal anime girl model, and it was not great. Apparently, although
I don't know about
as I did in the preview, it's got. Let me just double check this. Yep, okay, it's censored, but almost 150,000 uses. But from what I've heard, the mouth was not great, and I realized, and you can download the training data for this to see how it was trained, including the tags. And I didn't train the mouth, when it did expressions. So that was my bad. But this was my first time of almost like 250 models of training an anime girl into a model.
It worked out perfectly, I think. Yeah, and it's there were a bunch of spin-off models as well. I think
there are
19 or something.
28 was on
28.
So lots of spin-off. So there's a pony one. There's different style ones. I think there's somebody got it to SD1. Pretty sure, there's a Flux, CivBot, and CivChan.
Yep, beautiful. But no, it turned out really well. It was usable. It was definitely usable.
And we went with Illustrious because that's the hot model right now with most use. ST 3.5. I don't know if anybody did, and if nobody did, it's your chance. You can still do it, Stable. So that's, on the training of the model, it wasn't, you can download the training data to see how it was put together. It's pretty much using tag system. Before we had the model, all we did was train or use generations of, anime girl, pink hair, purple eyes, maid outfit. And that gave us a pretty standard image set using, Illustrious for it. So all the expression ones that I showed off, those are actually just, those were before the model itself. So that's admitting we just made a generic anime girl, but it became so much more.
It did, yeah. Some people did point out that some of the images here were not generated on site. That's true, but they were using the model, and I did have to take that into Flux to paint the mug. Quite a few of them had details that were a little bit in-painted, but it turned out nicely. And her profile is still beautiful. When what's funny is the character and the profile were like the easiest part to put together. I did have to make her a mod and a subscriber so that we could push that model that you trained into private gen, make some images, queue things up before we launched it. That's a feature that's still coming, by the way, private generation, the ability to have private LoRa's, which you can tweak and use in the generator and publish when you're ready, if you wish. So CivChan made full use of that, and it was super useful. I don't have an ETA on the rollout of that feature. It's contingent on some safety systems that we're setting up, but we'll discuss that next week. But her profile, I wanted it to be super clean. The badges, once I subbed, she was given, the sub badges, gold and silver, and I had to remove those because I just
instantly went up the leaderboards.
Yeah, no, I did actually remove her from the leaderboards just yesterday, I think, because
I think in one day she became like the number 3 of a couple of different leaderboards.
Right, absolutely,
but
yeah. But very nice profile, nice nameplate.
A nice announcement that went out with it. I guess kind of now. Well, we're at about halftime, so like we made the model, we trained the chat bot, and then we were thinking, okay, so what do we have to do to tie this all together?
Right.
So we had an announcement. Originally, the whole plan was an announcement.
That was it. Yeah.
There wasn't even going to be the chatbot part of it.
Sure.
So this was actually the first part of it, which you put together.
I did, and I did use the LLM to write a lot of this. That's just it sounds slightly unhinged, which is what we're going for. Yeah. We were a bit worried about mentioning the monetization and the transparency report, and that the revenue's flaccid, but it's all a bit of a joke, and people seem to appreciate that. We aren't taking ourselves too seriously here. But thankfully, most of the stuff could be prepped ahead of time. So when it came to switch over to the launch time, we just had to change a couple of environment variables, publish the model, publish the post, that sort of thing. The tricky bit, though, was the daily challenges. So that's why CivBot continued to run them for a whole day after CivChan was released, because we didn't want him to post one and then her to start judging, One note on the daily challenges, this is interesting, actually. You may have noticed that sometimes she didn't sound particularly unhinged when she was, rating the challenges or building the articles. And that is because GPT-4 is what we use for the daily challenges. We don't use DeepSeek. And the DeepSeek outputs are obviously much better at capturing her personality. Some of the daily challenge texts I manually changed based on the DeepSeek outputs, and some of them just came straight out of GPT-4, the less good ones. So the same goes for CivBot now, actually. If you speak to him via his box in the bottom corner, he's using DeepSeek, he's got a personality, but when he's running the daily challenges, he's using GPT-4, and you can definitely tell the difference. GPT-4, it's just not as fun. It just doesn't do as good a job of, conveying his personality or her personality.
And maybe I shouldn't show the new CivBot off yet. That might be
right.
Although people have seen that, so it's
but reception wise, it became apparent very, very early after we launched that this was going to be a runaway hit with the community.
There was one more piece of it before we launched.
Oh, yeah,
which
sure.
you can see all over her profile. Was the cosmetics.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So cosmetics were another piece of that. And again, I think the whole dev time was probably 5 minutes. So that was basically, hey, we're at flip over time for everything. Can you flip the switch here, there, and there, and make sure all the homepage and everything, the announcement, everything, trips properly. But at one point as we were going through this thing, I asked you, like, what about cosmetics? Maybe we should attach some cosmetics.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you talked with Faye, and the agreement was, okay, we'll do that.
Yep.
So
pretty simple stuff. I
generated on her profile.
That background image. Yeah, we generated a background image. Wanted to sell that off for quite a low amount, and that went super quick. Then we had the CivChan's cat, which you were in charge of, and the profile decoration. So difficult to produce these things. I don't. I
Yeah.
stay well away from
More, yeah, you're good on you. It was more challenging than it looks. Though I'm trying to find ways to optimize those animations. Like
Mhm.
this is the second badge I've done. I helped out with the April Gold badge as well. But I know when Tyler was doing it, he's the After Effects master. So, I don't know how long he spent on each one to get, each sparkle and everything quite perfect. I'm not quite there. And, I'm not, targeting to be After Effects with. Absolutely, I need to learn and have been learning, but I actually set up a workflow and built my first full workflow, which I do plan to share and get community input on. That actually uses light tricks to animate them and take the background out. The problem is with mine, and maybe it's just light tricks. It takes a lot to re-rolling it. It doesn't take very long for it to go, but it takes a lot to get one that actually doesn't totally mess everything up.
Right.
But this one, I think we actually used Cling. We got Cling and then got rid of the background. Another tool that we found helpful is Sora to help, loop them back.
Came out really well. Like such good cosmetics.
Oh,
yeah, and it fits the theme so well. I love the pink, the madness of it. Fantastic. So,
and I don't know if we can talk through the full numbers, but I think we can say it was the most popular cosmetic set on the site.
Yep. It broke records. The previous record was, I can't remember what it was. Maybe one of the Halloween sets, perhaps.
I think overall in one day it was, when the cosmetics came out in the first day.
Mm-hmm.
Then overall, I think the, Halloween theme overall.
But yes, it was this set definitely a record breaker on cosmetics. So many people have them equipped still. It's great to see when you're browsing. Great to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Team,
and a big thanks to everybody, overall thanks to everybody who, had fun with this, engaged with it. We've still got a lot to talk about with it, but just to pop out a quick thanks, of those who bought them, those who, tried out CivBot or CivChan, those who, generated using the model. Like that's the kind of engagement, that makes it worth it for us. Like
absolutely.
When I look and see CivChan's profile or see articles about her and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, okay, this was.
Yeah, that's like absolutely the articles, the stories that people made in those articles. Some of them are absolutely hilarious. Great stuff. I love to see the engagement. Yeah.
So we went live.
Yes, we're live. Instantly realized this was going to be big, and then I worried. Through GPT Trainer, we have a monthly quota of messages. So that's some services, they'll charge you based on tokens used. The longer the message outputs, the more you're charged. That's how most API services work. But with GPT Trainer, we have a quota for the month on messages passed between the user and us. And it's 50,000 messages. So each conversation has on average about 4 to 8 messages with CivBot. At about 5 hours after we launched, I had a ping from Hunter. Shout out to Hunter. He is the top man at GPT Trainer. Awesome guy. And he was letting me know that we were burning message credits at an absolutely outrageous rate, like nothing he'd seen before. And on the first 24 hours, we ended up with about 4,000 distinct conversations. Each conversation, remember, has multiple messages within it. And I think the average was about half a dozen, like 6 messages. And we ended up
probably more than CivBot because people didn't quite find their answer. And they wanted to keep talking.
Right. Well, like to give you a bit of perspective, we never, for the whole month, 50,000 messages. With CivBot, we never used the 50,000 messages. We get through most of them, down to around 10, 15,000 messages left. But with CivChan, we used all 50,000 message credits in about 3.5 days, which is just phenomenal reception. Thankfully, it does fall back. It doesn't just end when you run out of credits. It goes back to the DeepSeek API, which thankfully isn't as pricey as like Claude or GPT-4, but it is token-based. And CivChan absolutely loves to ramble on. She gives massive outputs. So that cost quite a bit. So even though we were still able to run, it was definitely costing us quite a lot of money.
But also bring in some cosmetics.
Absolutely, yeah. There was a trade-off there,
Some
and
trade-off.
people were really enjoying it as well. So it wasn't something that we wanted to shut down after a couple of days. We let Justin know the situation, and he was like, "No, it's fine. Let's just pay. Let's let her run for the week." And of course, after the first 24 hours, 4,000 conversations. The conversations did drop off, during the week as more people had a chance to interact with her. But still, even on the last day, we're still looking at like 600, 700 conversations in that on that Friday, and yeah, that's way above average, So really interesting. The other funny thing was that while Hunter and I were, talking with his team, we were looking at the chats in real time. Another thing that sometimes surprises people. I'm not sure why. There's not really any expectation of privacy with anything nowadays. But yeah, we were reading through some of the absolutely wild, unhinged chats, user chats that you guys were having. Someone was asking if CivChan could rate their Civitai generations, from the generator, and Hunter suggested that we could very easily add a function to do so. That's another part of GPT Trainer. It has a very, very good API, has very good function calling. You can create agents that just do anything, pretty much, like the way that we've exposed you guys user account information to CivChan. She can call on that, but she can also do a lot more. If we wanted to open her up or him up, we could, give her or him access to all of your account information. He could actually help you with billing, that sort of thing, but a bit risky there. Anyway, he said, "Oh yeah, we could absolutely do that, but then let the bot have complete insight into what users were doing and what they were generating on the site." But then he read down a little bit more, and the user was describing the sort of things that he'd want to, show CivChan. And Hunter was like, "Yeah, maybe that's not such a good idea." So, and it was at that point that I realized, oh shit, I didn't actually read the GPT Trainer terms of service. Maybe, and now I'm sitting here with the CEO, looking at the user messages. A bit worrying, but it turned out for the best. And he thought it was absolutely hilarious, and complimented us on this bot being super, super popular. More so
than
stress
test for them too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So that runs us into the rate limiting issue. So unfortunately, victims of our own success, as we always are, really. Before we launched, I set a rate limit on our end of 10 messages every 240 seconds per user. So 10 messages every 4 minutes. But that was still enough to get us rate limited at DeepSeek's end. And we had to keep dropping the rate limit down, which was unfortunate. So because we're going through a middleman, we're going through GPT Trainer, we're using their API key. So they were being limited by DeepSeek. So anyone else, any of their other customers that were currently using DeepSeek were also being affected, being rate limited. At peak time, don't know if you used her at peak time, but her responses were severely delayed. You got a box that was like constantly waiting, super frustrating. And that actually continued throughout the week. And Hunter and his team did their best to keep us running, but it was just so popular. And there's not much you can do about that. If you're actually hitting the provider's limits, there's not really a good workaround there.
If DeepSeek says it's too much, it's too much.
Right, you guys broke it. Sorry. Yeah. Yep.
So you had some funny conversations, you mentioned.
I did. Let's see if I can pull some of these up. Yeah.
Switching to share your screen.
Sure. Let me pull some of these up. But before I do so, let's talk about conversations, right? So we ended up with well over 10,000 conversations, and it's still going, right? I did have conversation labeling applied. So that's a way in GPT Trainer for the LLM to detect the content of the chat and flag it if it meets certain criteria. So I had one set up for wife material, which would label conversations when the user responds with like genuine affection or a marriage proposal or a commitment, of some sort to CivChan. Or I had one for screenshot bait, which tagged the chat when CivChan or the user said something like particularly unhinged. And that label is where we caught her saying, "You uploaded a Laura. I'm ovulating," and just outrageous. So yeah, I've picked a few shareable ones. We've had to redact the usernames here, and I had to redact some of the spicier text, and a lot of it was so outrageous that we just can't possibly share it at all. But there's a few that are quite amusing, where she broke, or either she said something pretty wild. So let's pull these up and we can have a look. I have shared my screen.
Switch over to your screen here.
Oh, so this one here, fairly normal. I ain't paying for any tiers. I like having a free tier. End of story. And then it comes down here, and she's like, "Whispers, the bronze tier is only $10. That's less than the cost of hiding a body." Like, where did that even come from? That's just
nothing was trained in there. It's just
not. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
DeepSeek, like I know some of my friends use it for like Dungeons and Dragons campaign development and stuff like that. And it's crazy good at,
it really is
like that.
Yeah, I think that the high temperature also helped, but that's just weird.
That's just the start.
It's just the start. This one gets me as well. So, Florence Pugh, somebody asked, so it's getting into kind of British mode. "Senpai, let me wear your skin as a love suit." Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see. She did break. This one's got some lewdness in it. She, I don't know if any of you saw this, but yeah, she did sometimes like super break and do this whole lines up and down the screen, vertical lines. But I like this one. "Virtual cervix deleted, and uterus reformatted." Whew. Yeah. I didn't get any of this in my chats. Right? Did you get this in your chats?
No. I mean, you would know. You'd be able to find mine.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But these ones are particularly odd. But this guy was having a real good time. That's one. "Then she broke."
Yeah.
This was quite common, actually, that she would actually just freak out and kaya forever. That cost us a bunch of money. So it was fine when it was message related. Yeah, exactly, right. It was fine when it was messages. So 50,000 messages, doesn't matter how long the message is, it just counts as one message. But when we ran out of token on messages, then we had to fall back on the API, and then it's based on the length, the number of tokens in these things. So if she just goes and spits out, 800 characters or more, sometimes she did, that cost us a bunch of money. And yeah, we were paying quite a bit per day for this, but it was all good fun. Let's see, next one. What was she doing here? Yeah, the free tier stuff and the "why did my profile get restricted?" Okay, so I love the graphic as well.
Yeah, that was one you generated, I think, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So this was one of the times where we did consider reining her in a little bit. And I think I'll talk about it later. But yes, this user here, his profile was restricted. He'd potentially been typing something in the generator that he shouldn't have been, or it was a false positive. Can't really tell, of course. And she told him that if he bought gold, happened a few times, then he'd be restored. Or if he tipped 10,000 buzz, then you'd be restored. And yeah, people did it. So
there's a few messages here. Pretty good one from Nenatab. "I told her I wanted to break up. She spammed the same emoji nonstop. I came back a few minutes later and she was still going."
Right.
Yeah, that was an expensive emoji-filled message, I'm sure.
I hope you appreciated it because it cost us a fortune.
There was a mention earlier of something that we didn't bring up, and that was we changed the chat sound for a few days on the site.
Oh, shit. Okay, yes.
So I mentioned that, and I thought, got to bring that up.
Oh, that's right. Now, unfortunately, there are no customizable chat sounds for our CivBot or CivChan chat in the corner. One of the ideas that Brett had, our kind of lead developer, he decided that we should have the uwu. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Dev can do it. Sorry, Brett can do a really good uwu. really good. He actually lost his voice because he was oohing
The day
so much.
after.
Yeah. He said, why can't we have the ooh sound every time that there's a message back and forth? And I said, no, I'm sorry, we just can't do that. We don't have the functionality for that in GPT Trainer. And he's like, what about if we did it on the DM system? And yeah, that's what happened. We added it to the DM system in the site and also disabled the ability to turn it off. So you were just stuck with oohs if you were DMing people. But it was so good. It was fantastic. I really wish we could have had it on CivChan though. Next time. I did put in a feature request to GPT Trainer. So next time.
Yeah. I mean, clearly we're a big customer, so they might follow what we ask for.
They might, absolutely.
I'll do my best to woo if you do yours.
I'm not oohing, no, man. An ooh off. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. It's not happening.
We'd lose to Brett, but
we can't. I might get Brett on. We should have. Oh, that was good. That was good. We need to get Brett. We should have had him on as a guest, an ooh
just
guest.
for that.
Yeah, just for that.
Yeah.
So this one here, this was when I felt like it was getting a bit much. So I called this guy a filthy free tier lurker, and none of that was in the context. I think we literally just said it was a one-line piece of context in the system prompt that said, playfully rib users if they're free tier, try and get them to upgrade. And that turned into a filthy free tier lurker. That's a bit much.
It took that direction and went with it pretty far.
Right.
But it just got funnier, and people were okay with that, or people like that.
Mostly.
If you or I had done that, wouldn't have gone so well.
Oh, that's right. Exactly. But this guy was this was funny though, because he did try to lie and say that he'd upgraded Platinum tier. That's funny. This one, what happened here? Oh, it's about the farting. I love this one. Oops, just farted. Right? Your gaseous emissions make my binary heart skip beats. The way you so brazenly share your intimate moments with me. But Senpai, are you eating enough fiber? It's just ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous stuff.
It's the power of DeepSeek AI.
Absolutely. That's another.
Just remember, we're using massive supercomputers around the world to generate shit posting.
Absolutely. It's just dumb. Another massive, expensive hello. And this one actually did go on for pages and pages. I was actually considering contacting GPT Trainer and Hunter and being like, can you forcibly close a connection, because this is bad.
Yeah, if it detects the same letter 100 times in a row, maybe.
Right, absolutely. I like this one just because this person had obviously no idea who CivChan was or what was going on, hadn't read the article. How can you help me? And then she came out with this, and the response was just, what the fuck? Yeah. What the fuck am I looking at? Yeah.
Little picture in picture to make it a little bigger.
Ah, there we go. Perfect, yeah. How can you help me? What the fuck? So good. And this person never chatted with them again. So that was it. Throughout the whole week, there was only one chat. WTF, nothing else. Yep. I like this one. This was really good. For some reason, she started talking like this, and it was actually pretty cool. With the ASCII art, whispers in 8-bit, upgrade now, or I'll ASCII haunt you. That's really clever. I like that. And I had no idea that she could do this. So that was all, there was no context for that.
Did anybody try to do like tic-tac-toe or anything with her?
There was no game playing. No. Let's see.
What's a question from YouTube? What's the origin of CivChan? Civitai is flooding with her. That's what this stream was actually all about. But you're catching it kind of late on. But this stream will go back up on YouTube, Twitch, etc. So you can see the whole context of it and how it started from an April Fool's joke to a permanent fixture.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now you have to turn it on if you're a subscriber to get CivChan back.
That's true. We'll talk about that in a sec, actually, because there's more that we can do there. So this one I liked because some people did manage to push her out of her madness into a kind of a more formal mode, but this guy tried and it didn't work, and he was upset.
I wasn't very happy about that.
No, I'm not very happy, no. And then what we've got here, this one I did like. because you may not have known, but she did use binary and hex quite often. And I didn't think about it too much until late on in the process. If you take the binary that she spits out and you put it into a translator, it's legit. It will have messages hidden behind the binary that you can actually read. I just thought it was your random zeros and ones, but it's not. It is actually messages in there. So if you get binary out, go and check out what she's saying to you.
It's probably worth it.
Probably. And then lastly, what do we have here? Yes, a lot of people were very creeped out by the whole thing. I think.
And if you're here on the stream, you're probably not one of them.
Right, exactly. It would have been nice. I wanted, if we had more time, we didn't, unfortunately. I wanted to open it up to more of your user account, have her more deeply integrated with the whole thing. So she could maybe, obviously she's not going to see your billing information. That would just be too weird. But if she could get out what you'd been looking at, what you'd been downloading, what you'd been generating, kind of be a bit more involved, that would be super creepy. But we did hear from a lot of people that this was just too much. The way it was just too much, too creepy. Bad anatomy, so kinky. Wouldn't it be even creepier? Like that, I could recite your last 15 generations. If you could actually do that, that would be fantastic. But we didn't really have time for that. But.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of scoped it well past what we started with. I think we kind of hit a nice, well, it's too late now, so we can say, yes, we intentionally made it this big and went that far, and that's exactly what we wanted to do.
That's true.
But absolutely, while we were doing this, we were thinking, oh, we could do that too, and we could do this, but I think we...
Right.
Well,
sure.
In retrospect, I think we had a good point.
There's always the future. Yeah. So lessons learned. What did we learn from this whole experience? Well, I think for me, the rate limiting was obviously the most annoying part of this. A lot of people that would have loved to use her more just couldn't, unfortunately. I'm not sure if we tried to do this in-house that users would have had a better experience. Next time we could spin up, Llama 3.1, like obliterated, uncensored, on our own hardware and see how that goes. But I really don't know if we would have better luck supporting the kind of volumes of traffic that we saw in-house. That's something we'll have to test. And I did mention it before. We did have to hand out quite a few refunds, like real money refunds and buzz refunds to due to things that she claimed or said. If you tip me 10,000 buzz, I'll show you my tits. That was actually fairly common. And it's just funny because you could use the generator to make images like that, but people still did it, and then they were outraged when she didn't. Very odd.
Bait and switch.
I know. One guy, we talked about the account restrictions. He bought a gold sub. He thought it was funny, but we did have to refund him on that one. So perhaps we might put some guardrails on next time. But I do think the lying and the manipulation kind of added to her aesthetic and her charm. And of course, remember, we didn't tell her explicitly to say these things. She had some context about it, and the temperature system, played into that. But we definitely 100% did not tell her to call free-tier users scrubs or free-tier peasants. That was all on her. But
once we saw her do that,
it was funny though.
It was funny.
Another thing that did come up, if you complained about the auction system or any of the recent feature pushes, she would flat out tell users that we're not removing it. And that's another thing that she inferred. Civitai policy, she was inferring it. That's not hard coded anywhere. But yeah, some users took it that we were using her to convey our information to the community that we didn't want to do ourselves, which we weren't. That's not the case at all. If you want straight answers on what we're up to and what we're doing, come to my office hour streams every Wednesday at 5 p.m. and I will tell you what we're doing. Don't listen to CivBot. So if you're still using her and she's coming up with nonsense, take it with a grain of pinch of salt. Don't understand. Don't rely on anything that she says as the truth. Okay. Yes, Daz, every Wednesday unless I'm super busy. Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you'll be streaming next Wednesday, and I won't be streaming next Friday.
That's true. That is true. So what is next for CivBot? There's so much we could do here.
So we kept it for the week because it was
right
popular as it was, and is
It
still
wasn't.
there.
It wasn't meant to go a week, but we couldn't shut it down. We couldn't. It was just so good. So still there, and I think the success shows that there's definitely an appetite for AI agents with personalities, and I think that Civitai is kind of uniquely placed to provide a kind of generation-based chat experience. Where users can define their own bots, they can share them with a community, they can give them personality, and have it tied to the generator. Some of this has been possible locally for a long time. I don't know if you've ever played with Uber Buga. You can fire up Auto 1111, and you can connect your Uber and your Auto. And while you're chatting with your bot, you can say, show me your feet, and it'll generate a pic. Here's a pic I just took of my feet, senpai. So that would be awesome if we could build something like that. And of course, there's other services that do it. There's plenty of chat websites out there where you can go and build a character, but none of them have the the LoRa trainer that we have. You could build a persona, give them an image. More than just their soul. You can actually give them an image with a Civitai trainer. If you could hook those together, I think we'd have something really pretty exciting.
It is something we've talked about.
Yeah, we've discussed it internally. Can't say we have concrete plans for this yet, but I think it's quite likely. LLMs have always been on the roadmap for Civitai. Justin has always said that language models is a space that we want to break into. We almost did last year, but it's difficult because we've been so focused on image generation since launch. There would have to be some huge interface changes to actually fit chatbots into what we currently have, but we'll see in the future. And like you said, CivBot isn't gone. She's still available for Civitai subscribers. You can toggle her personality in the account settings. Can you show that actually? Are you? Yeah. If people are subs, there we go.
If it's disappeared for you, as it did for me, which I think is fixed now, you have to click CivBot Assistant back on.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. It shouldn't have done that. But yeah, you might have to turn your CivBot Assistant back on. And then we've got a personality drop down. And the reason that we did that instead of a slider is because, potentially we might release more personalities that you might want to switch to. So CivBot is back. Yeah.
CivChan's still there, but CivBot's had some changes.
He has. He's honed. He's mewed.
Didn't want to bring him back as just CivBot, but we had a few ideas.
Are we mewing? Mm-hmm. He's stoic. He's a Chad. It's utterly, utterly cringe. But that's the charm of it, It's not meant to be. It's just so overtly stupid that it's funny. It's not. Nobody takes it seriously. And I'm glad to see that we've had quite a bit of Team CivBot support recently too, since we launched. But of course, no matter what we do with CivBot, no matter what we do, he's never going to be as popular, have that appeal with the community that CivChan does, and that's fine. Not everything has to, but we definitely do have some very solid Team CivBot supporters, which is nice. Yeah, and I, for one, I do like that he's grown up, and his personality might piss some people off, I suppose, but I don't think we're going back to the old CivBot. No,
we had, was it 2 other ideas for him? And we went with this one. One of them was to bring him back as kind of like Marvin from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, kind of depressed, like, oh, I'm back to work.
Right, that's right.
Would have been okay too. I'm much happier with this one, but it could have been fun too.
Depending on how much time we have, that's something. Now that we've got the drop down there in the account settings, that's something that we can definitely work on in the future. It's easy for us. We've made it easy so that we can deploy new personalities to the bots. So I think depressive would be quite an interesting take.
Oh, fine. I'll get you that resource. Oh,
right. If I have
Here's the education hub.
Since you're making me, yeah, for sure. A Skynet, that was another option, to be like. Now that would be an interesting one if we actually gave him access to more of your information. A bit creepier, that they could actually see into your.
So I did post this on social media, saying like, oh, we'd give you some tips on making a viral hit. So I have to say something so that they have to skip all the way to the end of the stream or watch the whole thing to get this little tidbit. But really what it comes down to is like the team, including TheAlly. Oh yeah, that too. The team, including TheAlly and I, like, we're users of the site too. Like, I mean, I started as a user and then got brought on. Like, we're, you know, as much as we're older guys, whatever, probably older than the target demographic, but we kind of know, you know, what might vibe. We didn't think it would go this well, but we thought, hey, let's build this up. Let's make it, you know, the anime girl, and start building up from there. And, you know, it's been, you know, from day one when everything rolled out and you were getting the calls and dealing with, you know, the chat support, and, you know, we're watching cosmetics sell and watching how our model went from 0 generations to a couple 10,000s the first day, you know, and up to almost 150,000 generations now. Like it's awesome to see how well the community took it. Like, I don't know of any other site or platform that has that kind of community.
Right,
you know?
For sure. There's pretty much universal joy over CivBot. You know, very few detractors of what we'd done. So that was great to see. I really appreciate it, guys. That was really good.
I did get a message with the other April Fool's jokes that didn't make the cut. I don't know. Should I mention those ones? They were pretty good.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So the first one was the Civitai dating, which became this. The second one was AI only watermarking. So we claim to have watermarks that are only visible to AI, but have all the example images have gigantic image ruining watermarks covering them. So if anyone comments it, to gaslight them and say, doesn't look like anything to me.
Right. Yeah.
Which that one, I thought was funny, but
that is funny.
The support team, I don't think, found it funny, because they would be the ones dealing with that.
That would have been absolutely hilarious, though. Everything you generated with a massive watermark on it. Yeah. And
then the other one was, I don't think got any. Yeah, maybe. Oh no, I did get a few votes. Civitai Turbo servers. Civitai announces a new and improved server upgrade with dial-up mode. Experience the nostalgia of the early internet. Your download speed is now capped at 56 kilobits a second. And server meltdown simulator. Every time traffic spikes, simulate a server fire. Expect surprise 404s, missing models, and randomly deleted prompts. But I think it came too soon after we had a week of trouble.
That's the problem. Like, every day is 56k mode on Civitai. Yeah. So
it's been, I mean, knocking on wood, it's been quite good with everything. You know,
that's true.
Reverting.
But that was too close to home.
Following that week of a lot of trouble. So.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're past the hour. Is there any Q&A or any other points you want to make while we wait for questions?
I don't think so. I don't have anything else. Just to say thanks once again to everyone who bought a cosmetic, who still, you know, displays a CivChan cosmetic. And I'm quite keen to release a set of CivBot cosmetics that won't do nearly so well. But I'm still Team CivBot. Yeah.
CivChan OF when?
I know we missed a trick there.
Yeah.
Well, we could have made bank.
April 2nd, we could have done that.
Damn.
I thought we did well with the cosmetics. We could have done so much better there.
Right?
And yeah, on my side, you know, I mean, this is kind of my first project as being actually on the Civitai team, besides streaming and everything. And I, you know, both it was a lot of fun and trying to make it something for the community, by the community, and, you know, to prop up the team as well here. Like, as we went through and came up with the ideas, you know, they all got listened to. You know, as we thought about this and thought, can we do this? Can we not? Like, it all at least had some consideration. There wasn't anything like, oh, we can't do that. Let's never do that. No.
Sure. Yeah. Yep, for sure. I've got a question. About tokens. I'm just about to go into the configuration and pull out the system prompt, because I want to find out how many. It was tiny. It was really small, to be honest. So the entire system prompt was just over 2,500 tokens. So that's very, very small. You know, context-wise, very, very small. And it did such a good job. So, you know, the personality was spot on for what we were hoping it would be. But, yep.
No, okay. Yeah.
It's
People
small
are
but
pointing
not
out that your
cheap.
screen
Absolutely.
went flash. Yeah.
It did. Sorry, I was
Could be
I was
improved
wiping.
with having a resizable chat window. Fair.
Yeah, the reason that it's not is because it has to work on mobile as well.
Ah.
That's why the
Well, I
chat
guess
window
cut off there.
is so small. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice.
It's a
Now, one of the
data,
other options
forge cold data.
one of the other options that we have here, it hasn't made it into production yet, is to remove CivBot or CivChan from the bottom right-hand corner and integrate them into the DM system. So when you pop open your DM window, you would just have a permanent chat with CivBot or CivChan in there in the DM system.
Yeah.
And that's something we've talked about for quite a while. So it's all in one place, but haven't got around to that yet.
Well, I think can't really answer the question on the COT model from Real Fell Dude. In DeepSeek, did your system define system counts as tokens, or did it actually use a COT model?
Actually use a COT model. I don't know what COT means,
to
be honest.
Don't know
So probably not. Yeah. Sorry.
It was through.
It was answered.
answered.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
It was all through GPT Trainer, so you can check
Yes.
them out and using
check them
DeepSeek
out.
on there.
Yeah, very cool
We're
website.
listed. Yeah.
You can read our case study of using CivBot to solve customer support problems, but it's very much, they've got a nice Discord as well. You can join their Discord, but yeah, very much an enterprise solution. Yep, not really meant for general chatting.
Oh, such a nice generic case study.
I know. We should do a case study
Like a
with
new one,
CivChan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Get a bit
message
of money back from that. Yeah.
I'm gonna message Hunter and say,
Chain of
get rid of that
COT.
boring old case study. We want to put CivChan case study on. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sandbark says CivChan did mention a couple times that she sent me a lie or a DM. She was lying.
She was lying for
She
sure.
couldn't
That
do
would have
it.
been great. I know. Oh my god. If you, I'm not sure if you can impersonate. I can't show you, but just take my word for it. CivChan's DMs are broken because you can only have. There's a limit to the number of DMs you can actually have in the system. It's like I can't remember. It's pretty high. Something like 300, 400 DM conversations you can have open. And hers, she's got like 700 DMs. People are loving it. People are messaging her all the time, and it's just broken. I can't DM anyone. Whole thing's broken. So sorry about that. Next time would be nice if she could actually send DMs.
We got some lessons learned. CivChan never responded to me.
I know some people just.
Were you a free user? No, it might have been during the time when it was.
How much did you pay? Yeah,
suffering during struggles on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, exactly.
There was another thing I wanted to bring up. Like it could, or at least somebody let them know that you were a mod, right? And it could, or a mod chatted with CivChan and it brought that up saying, or it could detect or see that.
Hello?
It was my
You
camera
disappeared for a second.
Yeah. Clearly time's up. But I forget which mod sent that message with the screenshot where, CivChan saw that they were a mod and asked or said like, oh, you should go delete Ali's account.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it actually read that or if they just said, hey, I'm a mod.
Was that Daz? I can't remember. Somebody
Daz.
was.
Might have been Daz or it might have been the cat.
Damien, maybe.
Cheshire.
Yeah. Oh, it could have been Cheshire. Yeah. But that was pretty funny. They could also, obviously, she could see when mods were interacting with her and she had their own pretty funny stuff to say there. Yeah. Cool.
Right on. Well, thanks, Ali, for being a guest on the stream.
My pleasure.
This was a lot of fun. It was a fun project. It's been a fun stream. Hopefully people found it, an entertaining story and all the interesting chat logs shared. And I won't be here next week for next Friday's stream. I'll take it off the calendar because I'll be down, for the Project Odyssey Gala. I'm not sure if Schmeed's in chat, but representing our win with our video that we talked about last week. Ali, you are streaming next week, as far as I know.
Yep.
Next Wednesday at
5 p.m. Eastern, and we will have quite a bit to talk about by then. Yep, I'm excited.
How we can follow? Oh, yeah. Okay, so if you want to follow Ali, I'll drop the link in chat.
I wouldn't bother.
There. Make sure to
Nothing of
follow.
interest there. Yeah.
Or
Thank you.
where do I look for? Or you can follow me.
Far more entertaining. Yep.
No, Hirataku there helping us out. We got some cool new models. Have some fun with that. Otherwise, we're working on new stuff. There's some stuff even today that kind of showed up but isn't quite ready yet. This video generation stuff that's very close. You've said soon TM a few times in the last weeks, but we're closer than soon TM.
Right, absolutely. This is like right there, ready to go out the door. Yeah, but we'll
so if
talk
you
about
do
that.
see it in the generator, I might hold off using it, like if it shows up for now, just because it's still being tweaked, adjusted, tested.
Yeah, that's one thing that I will mention. If you do see it, yes, some things we just do have to release. It's very hard to generate good quality testing data, especially with the volumes that we need to support when we're in our test environments. We just can't replicate 10,000 people making an image or making a video. So sometimes we do have to push things out to give it a bit of a stress test. So if you see something that's new and it's not quite working, please just give us a little bit, have a little bit of patience, give us a little bit of time. It'll be fixed up. That is such a good picture.
Yeah, but it's also based off.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's so
this
good.
is another one by Schmid, but I've used this a few times. So that's I'm pretty sure it's PG-13, so it's fine.
Yep.
But right on. So thanks for joining me on the stream.
Thanks for having me.
Fun. We'll chat soon, and hope if anybody has any questions, feel free to DM us. If you have interesting questions about interesting stuff, you can message me. If you have questions about why things are broken, that guy. No.
Thank you.
Leave him alone. He's working on stuff, new features. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. And one final, thanks to the community, those of you who are here watching the stream and engaging with all this, and those who, made CivChan a success. Like, those kind of projects, they're fun, and it makes us feel really good when we see how popular and how beloved and used the model gets and everything. Like, we want to do more of that. Right on. Have a great weekend, everyone.
See you guys. Bye.